Welcome, everybody, to Amped Up with David Schuster. I'm Cliff Schechter, and that is David Schuster on that side of me. The Emmy-winning, the estimable.
We're doing it live, and I gotta say, one of my friends last week saw our show last week, in which you did the show live, sitting on the floor of an airport.
Yes.
And one of my friends saw this, and he was really impressed, and he asked if either you or I, for one of these shows, could try doing it sitting down in a grocery store. It was like, he said, this is like challenge for Blue Amp Media. Is it possible that you guys can anchor one of your shows sitting on the floor of a grocery store? So I thought that's sort of interesting.
I'm thinking of a kind of going forward. We will come up with, again, where it was like when they did where I joked about it, where in the world is Matt Lauer, except for Matt Lauer is a predator, assaulter who's horrible. Where in the world is Cliff Schechter or David Schuster sitting? And folks, here's the deal. You become, if you're willing to, blueamp.co, you're willing to become a paid subscriber to the show. I will do this, assuming that gravity allows me to. You can put in requests for where you would like me to do this show from, and I will try. Obviously, it has to be a place where there's not so much noise. You can't be like sitting in the middle, of a road, and sitting. People will be like on the, they'll be like on the Autobahn. Something like that, because you guys are smart that way. But I don't think if it's somewhere where I can pull it off, I'll do it. Yeah, I did the airport, and then I was sitting in my hotel room for that one on Thursday. The special one with Steve Schmidt and Miles Taylor, which was hilarious too. The angle was weird. I was like trying to. So yeah, we may have to do that, David. I'm actually happy to hear about that, and that was good news. Unlike the Supreme Court, filled with right-wing predators, Brett Kavanaugh, Clarence Thomas, allegedly. Yeah, sure. And obviously people that are financial predators who have scooped up money from billionaires for every vacation, the $500,000 Clarence Thomas vacation. Roberts' wife is getting paid $20 million to advise law firms with business in front of the court. I mean, they are the same group of corrupt predators that we're going to be talking about with the great Kait Justice in just 1 second, because they're protecting this system. They're protecting the power. They know all these people. If they're not on these lists themselves, they're friends with people who are, and they're that same billionaire group that thinks that they should never have any responsibility, any accountability, and should be able to just do whatever the hell they want because they're better.
And for people who are sort of who are trying to catch up on the news, the Supreme Court essentially scaled back the Voting Rights Act, perhaps the signature piece of the civil rights legislation in the 1960s. And they basically said that a particular district that was drawn in Louisiana, that Louisiana has to redraw it because they took race into account. And as far as I understand this, Cliff, it's almost like, suppose, in any particular state that the African-American population is, let's say, 35%. But and there's 10 congressional seats. Imagine if in every one of those you have a white man, because you have white men who are the majority, and so they win 10 seats, and there's absolutely zero African-American representation in any of those districts. Is that fair? And that's part of what the Voting Rights Act was meant to try to correct.
And I think Louisiana's
situation where the districts could be redrawn again to favor the majority at the expense of the minority.
Yep. And what it does is, I know from living here in Ohio, it suppresses the vote because people often come out for a candidate they know. If it's a congressional candidate, they may turn out because of that and vote for other, various other candidates up and down the ballot. So when you have no chance of voting for anybody to represent you, and you see it that way, you don't turn out. And that's what these guys want. It's funny you brought up 35%. I mean, Mississippi is 38% black.
Right.
You add in the rest of the minority population, I believe Native American, Latino, whatever, you're getting to like 43, 44%. We should win there. There's a Senate race right now where we're only down like something like 2 points or 3 points there. That's how crazy things are, and we could. But they try to suppress as much of that vote as possible. And I don't remember Louisiana, but I know Alabama, it's 26, 27%. I mean, it's the vestiges of slavery and Jim Crow, and they're trying to reenact it because that was when they won, when they could actually pull that off. And I think it's a good moment to bring in Kait Justice.
While you do that, I've got one other quick politics question for you. And there is Kait Justice. Hello, Kait.
Hi, how are you?
Good to have you on the program. For people who don't know, Kait Justice has a wonderful Substack. She has become I think, as Cliff said it, one of the Epstein whisperers in terms of being able to translate all of this stuff about Epstein and all of his friends into information that many of us can process.
Yep.
Good to have you on the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
And she connects dots. She sees things.
Yeah,
She's
patterns. Patterns are kind of my thing, whether I like it or not. And so I think that's been one of the most painful parts about all of this is like, for me in my brain, I'm like, it's kind of obvious how all of this lines up in a lot of cases. And, you know, and then again, with just history, I like history. And so I see all of these patterns repeating, and it's just like, how are we even here right now? But I know how.
Well, let me kick it off, and Cliff is going to get into more of this, but to me, like, one of the biggest questions related to the Epstein scandal from the past couple of weeks was when Melania Trump, the first lady, sort of surprised everybody, went into the White House in front of the press and delivered this 6.5-minute statement where she called for congressional hearings and said that the women who want to testify should be allowed to testify, and that then we will know the truth. Not a single reference to her husband, no defense of her husband whatsoever. And it left all of us wondering, okay, why is she doing this? Is there another shoe to drop? Is she trying to get ahead of a story that's coming? We haven't gotten any resolution. What's your view?
Well, I think there was a lot of speculation about Paolo Zampoli, and I think her name was Amanda Ungaro, I believe was her last name.
His ex-wife, right?
Yes. I don't know that they were ever officially married, but his wife is what they call her, but also the mother of his child. And she had made a post because they had been in some contentious custody battle. They, you know, all of these things. And he, for lack of better words, had her deported. And so
she's from Brazil originally.
Yes.
So yeah.
And there's also records of her being on Epstein's plane when she was as young as between 14 and 16 years old. So we know that this woman, Amanda, you know, came from that situation, and they share a child together, and she's been removed from that child. And she had made a post shortly before Melania had made that or had done that press conference. And you know, there was a lot of speculation because she had called Melania out directly just for lying and saying, you know, I know things. And then just suddenly Melania was doing this press conference that nobody was even asking for. And so there was a lot of speculation around that. And I feel like that makes the most sense. The other thought is Michael Wolff. He has tapes of all kinds, at least he claims, and makes sense that he would. And in a book that had been released, I think that same week in the UK, there was quotes of Epstein saying that he had slept with Melania a full year before Trump had even met her. So, you know, I don't know if it was related to that. So I think there was just some things coming out, and she was trying to redirect, but it kind of turned it into the Streisand effect, which everyone kind of renamed the Melania effect at this point.
And I guess I mean, it all makes a lot of sense if you think about it, right?
Yeah.
They're always in Zampoli, of course, is another guy that Trump hangs out with. That's all over.
He was with JD Vance in Hungary, like with him. I mean, these are people who are blatantly like doing things that are at least very questionable. I mean, like, they shouldn't be people who are with officials negotiating things or being ambassadors of any kind at this point.
Right. And he was the one who supposedly was he supposed to run the Trump Kennedy Center, which is laughable, or he had some role like that, didn't he?
I'm not sure exactly what that was.
Shut down because nobody went there. So
yeah, exactly, because they renamed it. Like, who puts their name on somebody else's like memorial? Like, it's so. I mean, he does. I mean, he's the guy who just shook his whole cabinet's own hands instead of letting the king do it. So I mean, this is what we're dealing with.
Yeah, and he just goes up there with Lutnick and whatever, and just at some point where you're like, I mean. So Melania feels like we need to get up there and speak about this because this comes out about with his wife. And again, I'm not even sure she was his wife. She may have been trafficked to him we don't. I mean, she was trafficked.
Yeah,
so-
I mean, that's kind of how it seems just based on the information that we have. Again, I don't have anything that specifically definitively says that's what happened, but I mean, the evidence that we have, she was a young girl. She was on Epstein's plane. The other notable fact is that Paolo Zampoli takes credit for being the one to discover Melania and, sign her, because he, I believe, had an agency and helped facilitate the visa and all of those things. And so there was that component too.
So all I was going to say is, like, when you add this all up, I mean, it's like they're trying to tell you they're guilty. I mean, it's like he brings in Paolo Zampoli, who's a scumbag, who has this woman who may have, been his wife, may have been trafficked to him, deported. He's in the administration. Lutnick in the administration. It's just sort of like he appears in the book more times than anybody else, or in the files more. It's like it's
blatant at this point, and it feels like they're taunting us with how with how much they can get away with, because I just feel like, again, this is not no matter how you lean politically or what kind of views you have on how our country should be run, this is like way beyond any of that. This is just like morals, and anybody who has children or has listened to anything about this case and what has happened would not want these people representing our country making decisions, especially when there's so much conflict of interest. Like, how are these the people investigating the things that they're part of? It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I mean, it makes zero sense, and obviously in that, and then we were just talking about the Supreme Court decision that's made, and you've got known very chaste men, Clarence Thomas and Brett Kavanaugh, sitting on that court, and by that I mean they're a couple of sick alleged predators too. And I mean, you can't look anywhere there, and you're right. It doesn't matter what party you're in. Bill Richardson, disgusting, was in there. Bill Gates, but at the same time, it just these wealthy right-wing authoritarians, just they seem to be their behavior. This almost seems inevitable from them.
Yeah, and it really, I feel like I had asked a question on my Threads account today. I had asked my followers if they think any of the cabinet at all, if it's starting to hit them even a little bit, that they're probably going to prison. Like, there's at some point this is going to collapse. Like it is inevitable in that way. I mean, it's just that there's only so long before this starts to crumble, which, I mean, it is in a lot of ways, but it's like, I don't have all the answers. And I know that the corruption runs way deeper than we ever could have imagined. I mean, I've learned that myself with all of my investigating, but it's like at this point, I think as a country, just like as Americans, have to just say, wait a minute, like, what the hell is going on? Kid Rock is addressing like the Pentagon. Like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing? I mean, embarrassed doesn't even cover how I felt when I saw that picture. I'm like, are you okay? We're here.
Comey, right? Like Todd Blanche is standing there. You could tell from his body language, he didn't believe a word he was saying.
Nothing.
He's Trump's personal lawyer, and he has to know, the way this Supreme Court that comes up with this decision has to know, that many of them, if we ever get to the bottom of all this stuff, will go to prison. So now they have a vested interest in protecting it too. Todd Blanche does, who I'm sure has broken every God knows what he's done to protect Trump. And on either side of him, you had Jeanine Pirro, and who's the other drunk who was there? Oh yeah, Kash Patel on either side of them, and you're just like, is this a clown show?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
when Pete Hegseth was when one of the congressmen, when Pete Hegseth testified this morning, talked about the incompetence of the administration, the incompetence of people running the war, Pete Hegseth exploded. So I think there's a sensitivity that they have, and perhaps some projection because of how incompetent they are. But Kait, I was going to ask, do you go by Kait or Katie or?
Kait, usually. Kait. Yeah.
Okay. So Kait, you mentioned the investigations that you've done, largely on Epstein stuff. What is there one particular thing that you have found, or sort of a moment that you said, oh my God, I can't believe I'm seeing this. What was that story? What was that example? And what did it tell you?
So kind of two moments. When I was working on my Barr family piece, I'd published that one, I think, last month. And, a lot of stuff, there's a lot of this information was kind of in pieces, right? And like people had figured parts of it out and things like this. And when I finally started to put it all together, the part for me that I was kind of that kind of like whoa was when I realized that that the BCCI stuff and or not BCCI but the church committee. So I've talked about this a little bit, and that goes back to the 70s when they investigated the FBI and the CIA and all of that.
Right.
And when it dawned on me that Bill Barr had been, for some reason, like the question that kept coming back to me, I'm like, but why would he do this? Like, why would Bill Barr care so much to cover anything up or to do anything that I thought he might be doing? Like, why? At the end of the day, what does he get out of it? And then I realized his father was likely behind, or at least a big part of creating all those things that the church committee had discovered. He was part of the OSS that became the CIA. And he was very clear about how he felt about the president being, full authoritarian in a lot of ways. Like they get full say in everything, and Congress shouldn't be able to challenge the president when it comes to certain things, is how he felt. And it just kind of started to make sense. I'm like, oh. And then, like a lot of that clicked. And then the other part of that goes back to the war in Iran right now, where Jared Kushner, I figured out how similar. So there was
Kushner
Epstein.
involved.
Yes. Yeah. And so that part was like, whoa, when I figured that part out. And so I'll explain a little bit, but basically I had found some emails, and I know that there was a great investigation that was done that had found like similar information that I actually found after I wrote mine. So it kind of validated everything. But there was emails that I found of Epstein writing to the Saudi royal court, basically with a plan for how to create their own oil-backed currency, and then how to create a cryptocurrency that's supported by that. And the goal was to remove themselves from the dollar completely and, the Western banking system completely.
Which
and
is
this
what the
was
crypto guy, which is what the tech bros all want.
Yes.
Right.
And so this is it was a plan. Like there's multiple emails with like, this is exactly what we're going to do. And Epstein got zero money for it. What he got out of it was access to the Saudi prince, and he got to meet with him bi-weekly. And so apparently it was intelligence information he was after. But then what struck me after I figured all this out was how paralleled it was to what Jared's running now with his affinity partners, and how he's working with the Saudis. And it's like he's almost taken over exactly what Epstein was doing, like being that facilitator in that way. And when I kind of lined all this up and then realized how beneficial this war is to all of the things that they're doing, it was kind of a light bulb moment. I mean, it was terrifying, but it was like, wow, this at least makes sense. Because nothing's made sense. And I'm like, at least now there's some reason why this might be happening, because what they're telling us doesn't
And you mean in terms of helping the Saudis, the war
Yes.
is certainly helping the Saudis,
Yes,
and also in
absolutely,
terms of the defense contractors and the billionaire class that is in that industry that is making a fortune off of the war.
Right, and
Palantir is getting
Yes.
contracts. Musk, SpaceX is getting contracts. Right, all no bid, of course. I mean, think they're no bid.
Yeah. And I mean, of course, for my whole description is very top level. There's a lot more nuance to, oil prices and where we get it. And there's a lot involved in that. But just from like a very layperson view of what this is, at the end of the day, it seems that the Saudis benefit because with the Strait of Hormuz closed, and the oil unavailable, we have no choice but to access it through the Saudis more than maybe we were before. And from what I understand, their oil was twice the price of other options that we would
There's
have
probably
been
even
able to
more
get.
now, right?
Yeah, I'm sure it's completely, yeah.
That too.
I'm sure it's way more now, but even just that, so it's like they're banking while they're investing in Jared, who's negotiating a ceasefire and stuff. I mean, none of that makes any sense at all. Again, you don't have to be an expert. You don't have to be a politician. You just have to have logic and understand that that's kind of how that works, to be like, whoa, wait a minute. What are we doing? And that's where I think Americans have always looked to Congress, and Congress is nowhere to be found. There's like a few rogue Congress members who are just screaming about stuff that nobody's hearing, and then everyone else is just they just redirect because they're complicit. I don't know how else to view this.
And the thing is that when you're talking about these patterns, it ends up being this parallel track to so many of the worst or awful things that we've done. I'm sure there's plenty of things we don't know about. But first of all, they're almost finishing off what they started when, yes, it probably was Bill Barr's dad was probably involved, if he's with intelligence, when we overthrew the government, the duly elected government of Iran, to then put in place who we wanted, who would be much more friendly to us, whether it was oil or other things. And this is also the same kind of network. If you know what went on and ever read specifically about Iran-Contra, it was going through the Likud, the Israeli right, the far right in Israel, and the Saudi princes.
And from what I understand, Bill Barr he worked very hard to get a bunch of pardons around the Iran-Contra stuff. I don't remember exactly what that was, but he specifically made sure that people were pardoned related to that.
And wasn't he, when he was, this is crazy, I'm just thinking about this for the first time, and I can't believe this. When he was Attorney General the first time, it was under George H.W. Bush, wasn't it?
Yep, right when...
what did he run? What was the organization he ran again? I can't think. Well, the CIA.
Yep, sure was.
The CIA, of course.
Yep. I mean, the other part about that is when that happened, there was another journalist, Danny... I can't remember his last name now. Casolaro? I can't remember. They did a documentary on Netflix. It was like the octopus murders or something like that. But he had investigated a lot around the Promise software, which was spy software, essentially, that was distributed and stuff. And he had done a lot of investigating into this, and he supposedly had just gotten a lot of, or something really important, and he was supposed to meet a source, and he supposedly killed himself. He was found with multiple slits all up and down his arms, and it didn't make any sense at all. And all of his notes were taken that he had with him, things like that. And I believe it was Bill Barr who had just been appointed an acting attorney general. And there's just a lot of weird timing things with it where I'm just it's just odd. I can't say that it definitively means anything, but it's when you put all of these things together, it's okay, this is all very much a pattern. Things are very connected. So just, you have to ask the questions, if we don't ask the questions, then we just, we're really in trouble. A
lot of people are asking the question about Epstein's death. Was it really a suicide? Was he murdered somehow? And of course, you mentioned Bill Barr. The last government official to see Epstein alive was Bill Barr. What do you make of that? He was in the
CIA himself for 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you in terms of Epstein's death and whether it was suicide or not, or whether Bill Barr had him killed? Or
have not been able. So, when I first started digging into this, I would have not really questioned that he was dead, right? I did actually at one point go look at all of the autopsy pictures. I looked at the heart monitor that was attached to him and what that meant. And, I just went down the medical rabbit hole of it. And that particular body, if that was Epstein, was dead, in my opinion. That person had passed. I don't know if that was him or not. So that's the thing. At this point, given the information that I have, I don't know if he was murdered or extracted. So I don't know. And that's something that yes, I really don't
I'm
think
not saying
so.
I'm just offering it as a third option.
Yes, it's the one that
kind of
they
doubt it at this point.
well,
honestly,
it's the official cause of death as far as we know.
right.
But the reason I don't believe that is because it doesn't make sense for so many reasons. Like if you read Virginia's book, one of the things that she specifically said too, she's like, I don't believe that Epstein had been cremated and is buried in some, lot or something. Because he specifically had told her that when he died, he would be frozen until science could catch up to bring him back. And I know that these billionaires have access to things like they've started doing things like this. And that was his plan. So it doesn't make sense that one, he would kill himself, and two, that he would be cremated. Like it doesn't make sense. There's no, and the fact that all of his will and like all of that stuff was changed just like days before, and like there's just so many things that make no sense. So that's why I don't believe that he killed himself. I don't know, because I get that all the time when I'm writing, because when I'm writing I'll put what the official cause of death is suicide. I don't have proof that anything else had happened. So I will say that. I usually put it in like quotation marks, or we are told he had killed himself or something like that. But that's a comment I get all the time. Well, he's not dead. I'm like, okay, well, I don't know that. So it's something I'm investigating, and I'm not disagreeing. I can't prove that.
He probably is alive, and he was the guy who attacked the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
At this point, I mean, anything's possible. The timeline that we live in, I mean, really, you think it's like can't get crazier, and then it like does, and you're like, okay, wow. I said that to my kid this morning.
Because I was just talking to a friend the other day about how it's not that I necessarily think that this was staged. I don't think that the guy ran through and that was staged. And I don't think Butler necessarily was staged, but I'm tired of having to explain to people this wasn't staged. And I feel like I'm being beaten down. And now I've gotten to the point where if it turns out that it was staged, it wouldn't surprise me, because everything we hear from this administration, let's just take the Correspondents' Dinner shooting. They said that the Secret Service tackled the guy. And now we find out that no, the guy tripped after he ran through. They said that the Secret Service got shot by the guy and got hit in the vest. And now we find out, no, it was friendly fire, that maybe this guy didn't fire a shot. Everything the Trump administration keeps saying turns out to be wrong. And at a certain point, you think, well, then if they're lying about all this stuff, maybe maybe there's the big lie there as well. And so it's just.
No, that's what did it for me too, David. Initially, like, I didn't think, it never crossed my mind, that what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania could be faked. But then I started paying more attention to specifics, and things that I know, just because of the House of Cards world we're now living in, where things that I would be like, nah, before are happening constantly. And, that was the last piece that I just wrote, was on how Donald Trump has killed reality. And that's what dictators try to do. And so you get to the point where they lie about everything. I mean, he lies about stuff he doesn't have to lie about.
Yep.
It's just, it's crazy.
And he doesn't even make sense when he talks, and you just kind of accept it. You're like, am I not understanding? Or is it because and it's like, no, he just has literally no idea what he's talking about. He's just saying words.
I love it. There's a great example. So back to the Trump being evacuated away from the dinner. Donald Trump, in his interview with 60 Minutes with Norah O'Donnell, said, I was told to get down. The Secret Service told me to get down. Melania and I did. If you look at the video of Trump being extracted, it's clear that he fell, or that he stumbled as he got out of the chair. And if the Secret Service wanted him to be down, they would have kept him there, but they were so quick to lift him back up. And the American people, if Trump would have just said, hey, I fell, I got my foot caught on the chair, of course people would have been like, yeah, it was chaotic, we understand. But for him to lie about something like that's really sort of insignificant. Yep. Well, if he's willing to lie about something insignificant, he's certainly willing to lie about other stuff that is far more significant. Like, did you have some sort of advance warning that maybe Butler was going to happen? I mean, again, back to Butler, I don't think that the guy who took the shot, I don't think that was staged. But I tell people Donald Trump is the ultimate showman. And I think the moment that Donald Trump realized that maybe he got hit by a fleck of glass from the teleprompter in Butler, I don't think he got shot by the bullet on his ear, because
he could not have, because I know enough about
maybe a little bit of blood. Donald Trump was going to milk it for all it's worth. Of course, Donald Trump was going to say to the Secret Service, wait a second, I want to lift up, I want to raise my fist and say, fight, fight, fight. Hold on. Just like Donald Trump wanted to stick around at the correspondents' dinner because he wanted to milk it. That's staging the political,
at least the reaction to it.
The reaction.
And I think that Donald Trump, and what you're saying about him, is I think if you were to ask any psychologist from like a just strictly medical standpoint, he is textbook like narcissist. Yeah. And part of what makes him such an easy target as a puppet in a pawn, the way that he has become, is because of that. Because people around him understand that all you have to do is stroke his ego. It doesn't matter if it's true or not. It doesn't matter what you say to him, as long as you just have to know what to say to him to get the reaction that you want, so that you can get the results that you want. Yep. And you know that the only thing that matters to him is how people perceive him, or how he thinks people perceive him. So for him, being, an 80-year-old man, you would think tripping on stage, like, oh, I tripped on stage. It's not a big deal. People trip. It happens. It doesn't make you any less of a leader.
Self-deprecating joke about it.
Right. Like it's relatable. And, but he has a God complex because of the narcissism. So he can't be seen as weak in any way. This has to all be strategic, and he knew everything before it was going to happen, if you ask him. And so it's like that, though, is what makes him so dangerous to our country, is because he is so easily manipulated. It does not take much.
Yeah. I mean, look, will we ever know exactly what happened in Butler? I mean, there's something else to the fact that there was a 5-month quickie, quiet investigation, and they disappeared it, and, he's wearing that ridiculous thing on his ear at the convention, and anybody.
Well, other people did too.
Right. Which just shows how pathetic they are.
Cult-like.
I'm sorry, but if you know anything about firearms, and I used to shoot on a rifle team a long time ago, but I know enough about them to know that the muzzle velocity of that assault rifle, if that hits his ear's coming off.
Yeah, I mean, it's
not
just
like a matter of a small scar. There's no way he was shot.
I think you're right about glass or something. Like, I hadn't thought about that, but honestly, I think that is the only logical answer, is that there was like a shard of something that just happened to
the teleprompter is what they were saying. It maybe had been hit by it, because there's no way. That is the one thing I will say I am certain of, because science tells me that. The other, everything else, I don't know. But Crooks, that was his name, I believe, Michael Crooks. I don't remember anymore. Look,
isn't that incredible that we don't know?
There.
Yeah,
well, there's that too, right? Like, why
you would think that we would know that, but we don't, because it was so suppressed and not a thing, and it's just doesn't make any sense. So that's, for me, when I'm investigating and when I'm speaking, and because one of the things I try to remind people is I'm not an expert. Like, I don't come from a background of law. I'm not a reporter in that way. I am very curious. I like to ask questions, and I like to put things together. And I think when I try to encourage other people, what I'm trying to use my platform for is to get other people to say, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. That's all you need to do. You don't need to be an expert. You don't need to know all the details. You just need to have enough confidence to be able to say, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense, and ask the questions. Maybe it does ultimately, in the end, it will make sense to you. But if something doesn't add up, like, why don't we know that name? Like, why didn't that why wasn't there more about this? If it was such a significant, right, exactly. That's what I mean. Like, it doesn't make sense. So those are the things that I think are really important for Americans to like trust their gut in that way. Like, you have to really start just feeling that, like, does that make sense? Like, that's, yes, that's what they're saying, but does it make sense?
Right. And another thing, I'll just say one more thing about along those lines, which is from time-stamped pictures, they know the guy was up on the roof for a while. All right. I mean, at least 20 minutes. It may have been 30. I don't remember what it was. So at that point, and been spotted, and yet he's left up there. So
Right.
me, and he took a shot after he was rushed by, I guess it was a cop or whoever it was who went up, Secret Service went up there. It was within a few minutes after, less, that he took the shot. So how could have taken, I mean, I do have to ask that question, because either these Secret Service agents really suck at their job, or something's wrong. And it could be either of them. But I mean,
or both.
How does somebody stay up on the roof like that? Like it's
I don't know. That's what I mean. And like the thing with the correspondence dinner is, it's like, yes, I understand the person had, a shotgun, another gun, some knives, like things like that. And I understand, because I just took the train. I just went into Manhattan and I was on the train, and, they're not going through our bags. I understand that part. The part that I didn't understand is, how does this person get from California all the way to an event where the president is going to be? Not just the president, but like the two people that succeed him if something was to happen to him. It's like they're all in one room together. How does this same person then check into a hotel with all of these weapons? And like none of this makes sense. Nothing makes sense.
Fly? Do you guys? I felt like he flew.
I'm not sure. He might have. I had heard that he was on a train at one point, so maybe.
Was it
yeah. Yeah.
The other part about it was, I think I like to sort of point out to people, is that, coincidences do happen, right?
Yep.
It could be just a coincidence that, Caroline Leavitt was talking about Trump's jokes and said, "Oh, Trump's going to take some shots." And it's just,
that one I did.
Just a coincidence that Donald Trump just hit the lowest approval rating in the history of, modern polling. I mean, all coincidences do happen.
Mm-hmm.
But to your point, when things then don't start adding up, or when there's a pattern of lying and there's a pattern of milking things to an extreme and making things so absurd, it starts to make you wonder.
Yes, and it should make you wonder. And that's the part that I think the media in particular has been so complicit in, is like normalizing that confusion and just kind of like writing a headline like this is normal, instead of like, wait a minute, what the hell did they just say? And like, that's what it should be. Like all this stuff with Jimmy Kimmel, there should be no it's a First Amendment violation. The man said something that was taken out of context. I mean, and even if it wasn't, he's a comedian. Like this has been a regular bit for him, and now we're indicting people over taking pictures of seashells that say 8647, which is something that's on like almost every protest sign that I saw. It just, none of it adds up. So just as an American, you have to take a step back. You don't need to be any kind of expert. You just have to be able to have logic and go, why would we do this? That makes no sense. No matter what political party you are, it doesn't make sense. And that's what I'm hoping people will do, is question it.
It does make sense, though, for Caroline Leavitt to come out at the briefing and, for political reasons, political expediency, to say, "Oh, Jimmy Kimmel, why would anybody talk about murder?" Well, Jimmy Kimmel said Melania Trump, in this sort of parody that he did before the dinner, where he was sort of pretending that as if he was the MC of the dinner, saying, "Oh, Melania, you look so beautiful. You have the glow of an expectant widow." Mm-hmm. Now, you could take that, at least, if you look at the clip and you could think, oh, he's making fun of the fact that Donald Trump's 80 years old, or Donald Trump has dementia, or Donald Trump has health problems. Jimmy Kimmel never says assassinated or murder, but it's political expedient for Caroline Leavitt to then put that on Jimmy Kimmel, because she wants to score political points and make people think that Jimmy Kimmel was referring to an assassination, because that goes to benefit Donald Trump and with the narrative that the Democrats want him dead, or whatever, or that the media wants him killed, whatever it is.
Yeah, and I mean, that I had started doing something on my Substack that I was calling the spin downwind, and the whole point of it really was to take like 3 or 4 headlines about the same news topic and just kind of pick apart the headlines. Like, I'll start with what the actual news was, just from a blanket, this is the facts, and then we look at each headline and kind of what they're trying to make you feel before you even get to the story. Because I think once people can start to spot this stuff, then it makes it easier to filter it a little bit. And unfortunately, we have to do that. We shouldn't have to. We should have media that we can trust, but we don't. And, you know, at least not mainstream media. That's why we're all here on Substack now. And it's just when we have, I just can't express how much danger we're in. Like, I can't say it enough. And again, this is someone, I love history. I really understand a lot of how things have evolved, and we are in danger. And the way that we protect ourselves, one of the only ways that we can, is by arming ourselves with actual information and educated questions, and being able to have the confidence to say, you know what, I don't know that, but I can still ask about it. And it doesn't mean that I'm stupid. It doesn't mean anything about me. It just means that I didn't know that. That's all. And so I want people to start having confidence to say, this shit does not make sense. What are we doing? And ask the logical questions, because we are going nowhere if we don't do that.
Yeah. And I mean, your point about the media, again, we were with the, you know, when Todd Blanche got up the other day is a classic example, and is announcing this indictment that's ridiculous, absolutely
so ridiculous.
And they sit there and they play along with it. Like, so when you're indicting it, you know, when you indicted him, which charges are you, you know?
They ask questions like it's a serious thing, and it shouldn't be.
What is your fucking justification for taking something that everyone in the world has said, 86 them, you know, and using that, especially, we lost Kate. Kate, are you with us?
Me?
Oh, there you are. Okay.
My phone rang, sorry.
No, that's all right. You know, and it's like Donald Trump, I mean, it took me all of 5 seconds to find where he shared an image of Joe Biden hogtied and whatever while Biden was president and he wasn't. It's just, I mean, it's utterly ridiculous.
The president called to kill an entire civilization.
Yeah, there was that too.
The other part about the indictment, so this just goes back to the corruption factor, right? And just how far we've moved away from any actual law, is not only is the indictment like completely absurd, right? They did. So I found out.
Is it like a coloring book kind of thing where like they drew in some stick figures and.
Let me stop. For people who don't know what we're talking about, we're talking about James Comey, the former FBI director, who posted a picture. What was a year ago? He was walking on the beach. He saw shells that were arranged with 86-47. And he posted that image and said, "Oh, this is interesting." And because of that, they took that as, oh, there's James Comey calling for Donald Trump to be murdered.
Right.
They literally indicted him for threats against the president's life and like all this stuff. But the part about this that is the corrupt part, right? Because like you said, this was a year ago. And then Kash Patel had said, oh, we've been working on this for 11 months. So they've been doing this for 11 months. And apparently it's been serious enough to put effort into for almost a year. But the same exact day, so it's the same day that James Comey's daughter wins her right to sue the DOJ for wrongful termination. Literally that morning, she won her right to sue the DOJ. That afternoon is when they indicted her father. They had 11 months and they picked hours after she wins this.
Sometimes it's too much of a coincidence.
Right. I mean, to me, that feels like if you don't sue us, we won't indict your father kind of thing. Like, you know, like, and she's like, what are you even talking about? Like, what are you going to indict him for now? Well, they found something else. I don't know. It's just, this is weaponizing the DOJ on our tax dollars while we're not actually prosecuting any of the pedophiles and criminals in the Epstein files. It's like, again, logic, people. Like, it doesn't matter what political party you are. It doesn't matter who you voted for at any time. Today, you can know that makes no sense, guys.
It's ludicrous. I mean,
it is.
There is, I mean, there's a certain element of stupidity among a lot of the American people because I see it on social media that whenever you talk about, lawfare, you have the certain number of maggots out there who say, oh, but, Donald Trump was indicted several times and Donald Trump was indicted by Letitia James and Donald Trump was indicted in New York. And it doesn't occur to them that maybe the reason Donald Trump was indicted is because he actually engaged in wrongdoing.
Because there was actual crimes.
Right.
Like,
they just think that, oh, Donald Trump behaves the exact same way as anybody else. And therefore, if he's indicted more times than anybody else, it's because it's unfair and lawfare.
Right. And or it's retaliatory or something. And that's what he has spent his whole political career basically convincing people of, that he is the victim and that he's just here to drain the swamp, when turns out, according to those Epstein files, he is the swamp.
Right. And there's a wealth of evidence from way before
he
became president, I mean, this is his pattern his entire life.
His whole life. Right. I mean, his main mentor was a mobster. I mean, it's just there's no way that you can look at this as a logical human,
right?
And without, I mean, unless you have been persuaded by the propaganda. And again, I just want to say that if you're somebody that did vote for Trump and you were persuaded by it, at first, there's a point where it's like, I forgive you, right? Because some of that is, as a marketing person and a PR person, I understand the psychology of that, right? So they find their targets, they find their weaknesses, and it's something in marketing we call pain point marketing. And what they do is they think about it. Okay, what's this demographic? So say it's white men between 25 and 50 or whatever it is. What do those guys wake up every morning upset about? What keeps them awake at night? What is it that bothers them? Is it do they run small businesses? Is it their child support? What is it that really irks them? And they go digging and they find all of that. Then they create content around it so that you feel seen, so that they start telling you oh, isn't this true? Isn't this true? And then you're like, wow, yeah, that's exactly how I feel. They understand, they get it. And that's how it starts. And that's how the cult, if you will, has been built, because they appealed to these pain points, these things that people struggle with. And now they've extended it so far as religion. This is something that's deeply personal to people, that they, it's connected to everything that means anything to them. And they have taken that and exploited it at the highest level to convince people that what they're doing is right in the name of Jesus. And it's clearly not, but the way that they go about it, it's confusing, right? So it's I think it's important too at this point in our country that we can start to recognize that a little bit and not criminalize everybody, because that's where this divide is. And there is no hope for us if we can't find a way to agree to disagree and bring back debates. We have to teach people how to debate again, because once upon a time, a debate was how you learned. It wasn't just about being right. It wasn't about fighting with people. It was about learning something new. Hey, I hadn't thought of it like that before. And it's about, being thoughtful with your arguments, not just arguing for the sake of being right. And those things are just lost. And that's why the Trump administration worked so hard to get rid of the Department of Education. They don't want us to have that knowledge. They don't want you to be smart enough to take them out. And by that I mean politically, just
with the algorithm.
Yeah, but just when I say take them out, I mean politically, just to clarify.
Listen, you don't mean the bang bang take them out.
Yeah, nothing like that. Just take them out by, when I say 86, I personally mean removing them from office in a legal and peaceful way. That's what I mean.
Do you know how tempted I was to make the thumbnail for this today? I was going to 86 SCOTUS is what I was going to, and I was like, I will probably be arrested if I do that.
I mean, at this point, who knows?
I was so close. Yeah. I can't do that to my. Because obviously I'd be giving them the middle finger, which they deserve because they're so full of it. But it's that's where we are. How ridiculous it is. So yes,
it really is that ridiculous. It really is.
And Kait, as a student of history, is there a period of history that you would compare us to right now?
Genghis Khan. No, just kidding.
Oh God, it's a combination of the Gilded Age, because what I actually call this the second Gilded Age. I made a video like last summer about it, because I don't know if a lot of people know this, but the term Gilded Age was actually an insult. It was not meant to be a good thing, because something that was gilded, they meant it was all fancy and beautiful on the outside and rough
Golden,
to the core.
like Donald Trump, who loves
but
all the gold and is a parody.
And inside it was rotten. And that's what the Gilded Age was. And if you think about it, that's when they were building the railroads and all the banks that we have here, like JP Morgan, all of them. They were building everything like New York, and it was on the backs of, people who had no choice but to work for them. And they had unimaginable wealth that they could have done a lot with and chose not to. And I personally am of the belief that's when we lost a lot of our country, was during that kind of Gilded Age. A lot of the people who created the things that we needed, like the railroads and things that people depended on, used that power to capture the government. That's the regulatory capture. And I think that at this point, we're kind of in the Gilded Age 2.0, where the income inequality is so extreme and the wealth is just unimaginable, and the things that they're building are just unnecessary, like the opulence of the Gilded Age.
And to themselves. Like,
Yes.
the difference is that when we went through the New Deal period and New Deal consensus for 50 years, we were building stuff that actually helped everybody. It's like if you've ever been up atop the Hoover Dam, you just be like, wow.
Yes. So a lot of that stuff was beneficial for other people.
Well, right, and that was the government doing it for all of us, because they'd taken our country back. The New Dealers, which is something we need to do.
Yes, that's really where we're at. I just feel like we had started, because I'm going to be 40 soon, and so when I was younger, it's like we were taught that we had moved away from a lot of that. We'd evolved. We've worked that those were our priorities anyway. Even if we hadn't gotten there, those were the goals. And that's completely been erased, largely in part by SCOTUS. And it's like what I'm looking at now as the mother of, 3, I have 3 children, and I'm just like, this is horrifying what has happened. And so this is why I am Kait Justice now, because I'm like, I can't do nothing. This is my contribution, is just if I can get anybody, even one other person to go out, ask questions, hold somebody accountable. It's like, that's all we can do. That's our way forward.
Well, and I think you are pushing forward with accountability, because I think people like you and people like Cliff and others, I mean, we just saw that in California, they got 1.5 million signatures for this billionaire tax that they want to impose. They only needed 875,000. This thing is going to pass. There's going to be a 5% charge on billionaires. That's a pushback at billionaires. I think there's all sorts of elections, and Cliff, we were starting the show by how close some of these Senate races are. In Ohio, Sherrod Brown, 3-term senator, is running again against John Husted, the Republican incumbent. And John Husted just said, talking about demographics and what's going on in this country, well, people are just going to have to work more. Really? That's your message?
That's
right. People who work more impossible. When John Husted is in bed with the billionaire class. Sherrod Brown, I can say Sherrod Brown's going to win that race. And I think Democrats are going to take control of the Senate. And then things do start to make change. We do start to see changes.
Yeah. And I'm in Massachusetts, and I don't know what the income level is for that, but we do have like a billionaire tax in Massachusetts, which is why all of the school lunches in Massachusetts are free. We don't have no children have to pay for school lunch in Massachusetts, because that particular tax is a large part of where that money comes from.
You guys have done it right there.
I mean, I have criticism, but mine's more related to environmental stuff that goes back to the Gilded Age, funny enough, General Electric, all of them, and just some of the way that the politicians take General Electric money, so they ignore lots of things that I need them to address. But that said, there are a lot of things that we have gotten right. And
I just mean comparably, you look at some other states.
100%. Like 100%. We do a really good job in a lot of ways. And I think that we can use a lot of what we do here can be an example, because it's like, yes, Massachusetts is a small state, so I understand some of it doesn't scale quite the same way, but the principles are pretty basic. You know, a tax on billionaires is pretty basic.
Well, Romney Care was an example for Obamacare, and then Romney denied it when he ran for president because the Republican Party was already starting to go crazy.
I know it's crazy though, but that's because Massachusetts had that first. We had that before it was ever a thing. I didn't realize that at first because I'm in Massachusetts. I didn't realize everyone else didn't have that until Obama. And I'm like, wait a minute, nobody else had that? That's crazy. And so, yes, it was a Republican in Massachusetts who helped initiate that. So it was like, and then he went and voted against. You can't make this stuff up. I mean, really.
No, it's almost like every sort of new administration, Republican administration, or, you know, Congress is corrupted just a bit or a decent amount beyond the ones before. Because Romney was still, when he was governor of Massachusetts, too conservative, but he was actually trying to solve problems.
Yes, I agree. And I think, you know, that was a good example, because I might have even, I think I voted for him. I don't remember what year that was. But I think there was certain things that I really did like about that. And it was good in a lot of ways. But I mean, that's kind of what I think we're missing in our country, is we have let this administration divide us so much into just, they keep us focused on hating each other while they're up here doing whatever they want. And so if we can come back to a place where we can start to have conversations. I mean, I really just think at this point, though, all of our officials need to go, with the exception of like a couple of them. And we just need to start over, because this is like the corruption and the connections and who's in whose pocket and what. I mean, it is so layered and deep, and it's I don't know that we can ever get out from under it. Yeah, there you go.
It really does, like just all of Congress and I mean,
it's
anybody who goes into the White House after Trump, if you don't steam clean that thing, I don't know what you're doing. But in any case, right. So yeah. So we're gonna beat them in the end, though, is what's important. Yeah.
I think so. I mean, I think Americans are angry, and I think they will vote for whoever they need to vote for in order to make this stop. I don't think that it even matters at this point for a lot of people which party a person's from, as long as they're willing to do what's right, which is not a lot of them. And that for me is like, I personally can't. The embarrassment that I would feel for all the rest of my life if I was these people. It's like, I think about that. I'm like, I'm going to make the most epic, like, hall of shame. Like, I don't know if it's going to be a website or a place, and they're all going to have plaques with all of their photos and all of the horrible things that they've done, just so we can, and we'll call it the Hall of Shame. And it will just be this example of things never to do. These are the examples of the worst people in history.
People look at it in 200 years and be like, look how screwed up that. We look at us like we look back at like.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Kate. And I think you're absolutely right about sort of the mood of the country. We were talking with Joe Shippey last week, and it stuck with me. He kept talking about the double haters, the people who hate both the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. Usually those people just don't participate in the election. But now those independents, those double haters are so pissed at the Republicans, even if they don't like Democrats, they're still showing up in polls and saying, I'm going to vote, and I'm going to vote against the Republican. Anybody who stood with Donald Trump, I'm going to vote against them. And that's one of the reasons Democrats have such leads. And so
they're voting like I think he said 3-1 for Democrats over Republicans.
Yeah. People are very, very angry, and people are very, very stressed out, and people are living in survival mode in a way that they have not seen in a long time. And I come from a very humble life, and a lot of people that I love are having a really hard time. And it's like, that's a big part of why I do what I do, because I'm like, I have to use my voice at least. That's all I got. That's what I'm going to do.
Okay. Where can people find you?
Mostly here on Substack, and then on Threads, I'm a lot, and it's just the Kait Justice on Threads. And then I'm here, Kait Justice and Downwind of Truth is my Substack.
Awesome. You're doing a lot that's making a big difference. And I mean, you're talking about changing one person's mind. I'm sure it's a lot more than that, because you're writing these stories, you're making these connections, you're keeping the Epstein story out there and the billionaire oligarchs and the rest of them. So
Well, thank
Keep
you.
doing what you're doing, because
Thank you.
we need to get rid of these bastards.
I call them the Epstein class. I feel like that's the perfect term for them. It's
Absolutely.
just the Epstein class. And I feel like there's probably nothing that they hate more than being called the Epstein class. So I'm like, perfect. That's what
So,
it
yeah.
is.
There you go.
Thank
Epstein
you
class. it is.
so much
Thank
for
you
coming
for
on, and
having me.
congratulations on all the amazing work. And you certainly are inspiring a lot of people, and you're getting a lot of readers, and you are making a difference. And
Well,
we
thank you
appreciate
very
it.
much. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Thank you for being here, Kate. David.
Great
your
show as always,
usual-
Cliff.
Your usual wonderful job. Thank you for being here. I know there's kids to pick up and things to do.
That's right. I'm right there with
and-
Kate in New England. I'm in Connecticut, and I got kids coming to the bus stop soon. So
Yeah,
that's
my
my
husband
afternoon.
actually took his lunch late and he works from home, so he was able to go grab mine for me. So I was like, okay, cool. I can hang for an extra minute or two without like
Great.
rushing.
Yeah, mine drive at this point. So
Yeah, soon enough, but no, we're not
it's
there.
scary.
Thankfully.
It's
Yeah, no,
some
I'm
scary
terrified.
stuff.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that will be it.
All right.
We are done with Amped Up. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, David. And for all of you out there, thanks for watching. And as the sun sets slowly in the west, we bid you a fond farewell.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey.